Oh, I'm a little bit concerned about a word that's been used by a very respected economist, the chief economist at Macro Business, Leith Van Onselen. And if you listen to 2GB, you may have heard Leith before, very, very smart individual. And he's used the R word, recession, off the back of the latest retail figures. In December, retail sales fell by 2% over the month. That's December. When we're in the lead up to Christmas, it's supposed to be rush time for retail spending. So the result was worse than expected, far worse than expected. When adjusted for inflation and population growth, retail sales fell by a massive 6%. Leith Van Onselen, the chief economist at Macro Business, is on the line right now. Good morning to you, Leith.
Yeah, g'day, Ben. Thanks for having me on.
Do you pause for a moment and think, am I going to use the word recession before you put pen to paper?
No, I don't, because basically Australia's been in what's called a per capita recession for basically 3 consecutive quarters. Now, what that is, that's basically when per capita, per person, we're all going backwards. So we've got a situation in Australia, and everyone here knows it. We're running a record immigration program. The population grew by just over 620,000 people last year, which is basically Tasmania plus another 50,000, extraordinary numbers. And that massive population growth is keeping us out of a technical recession, which is basically when you have 2 consecutive quarters of overall economic growth. But the economy's not growing fast enough to keep up with the population growth. So basically, we're growing the economic pie via population growth, but everyone's slice of the pie has been shrinking for 3 consecutive quarters. And households are copping it the hardest because basically per capita, households, their disposable incomes fell by 6% last year. They're cutting back on spending. They're cutting back on retail sales. This is all because of soaring rents, soaring mortgage rates, as well as obviously rising taxes and other cost of living. So we're basically in a recession. It's just not called one because of this extreme population growth.
Before we get on to the bigger picture, just on the retail sales figures, is there a chance that people are going out there and doing that Christmas shopping earlier now because you have all of those Black Friday and Cyber Friday or Cyber Monday sales? They're getting it all done earlier rather than rushing off at the last minute to take care of those things?
Oh, absolutely. Look, households are more cost conscious than ever, so they're taking advantage of sales. And what we did see, we saw a bit of a bounce in sales in November. Then that obviously reversed out heavily in December because people brought forward their sales. The bigger number to note there is what you mentioned at the start. Basically, retail sales in aggregate only went up 0.8% for the entire year last year, and that's against population growth as well as inflation of around 7%. So effectively, we went backwards by 6% once you adjust for those things. So basically, households are cutting back because their incomes are falling, and obviously the cost of living's gone up. But basically, it's a very, very weak economy now, and we are in a recession once you adjust out for population growth.
We're chatting to Leith Van Onselen, the chief economist at Macro Business. Leith, you know that the Prime Minister called his MPs to Canberra, spent a ton of money to fly them all in and come up with some cost of living solutions, and then they announced some changes to the stage 3 tax cuts, and that was about it. What should the PM be doing right now? Because we've been talking about the cost of living crisis now for 2 long years or more.
Yeah, look, the cost of living crisis, it comes out of a lot of things. It's obviously soaring energy costs, but the big one that people notice the most is obviously we've got soaring rents, which affects, basically a third of households, and obviously soaring mortgage rates. Look, probably the best thing the government could do is basically cut immigration, to be honest with you, because effectively we've got an economy whereby we're bringing in more people than the economy can cope with. We're not building up houses, we're not building up infrastructure, all that sort of thing. And that's putting upward pressure on inflation, especially through the housing market. So not just rents, but also the cost of buying a house because we've got excessive demand, all that sort of thing. And the number one thing they can do is basically cut immigration to a sustainable level. The fact that it went up, we had 520,000 nearly net overseas migrants last year is just off the charts. It's ridiculous. And it's forecast to basically stay high forever, according to the Generation Report. So it's
And then the crazy thing is that every day we're hearing about Sydney and Australia not having enough room. I mean, the debate today is around not enough parking around hospitals. That's why our healthcare workers are going to have to pay for their parking again as of tomorrow. Not enough space on the roads, not enough place in the schools, in the hospitals. But at the same time, we bring in these record numbers. Now, Albo did announce at the end of last year he was cutting back those numbers a bit, but he's got to go a lot harder than that.
Yeah, look, he's basically cutting it back from an absolutely insane number that we've never seen before to an extremely high number that is still, amongst the highest in Australia's history. So, for example, this financial year, we're supposed to go down to 375,000. Well, guess what? That's the second highest in Australia's history. And then it's supposed to go down to about 250, which is still higher than the big Australia immigration levels we had pre-pandemic. So we're basically, it's a bit of a fake cut. The fact of the matter is we shouldn't have rebooted immigration so strongly post-pandemic. That's why we've got a rental crisis. That's why, it's part of the reasons for the cost of living crisis. And the federal government shouldn't have done what it's done. But unfortunately, it's doubled down on the stupid policy we had pre-pandemic where, if you're a resident of Sydney, you're all being shunted into defective high-rise apartments. You've got toll roads going up left, right and centre to cope with the population growth. And your living standards are falling.
Just a quick one, and I hope that we can speak regularly throughout the year. I've heard you many times on with Luke Grant when he was doing the overnight program, and always find you interesting to listen to. A quick one, Reserve Bank meeting next week. Have you got any predictions for mortgage holders?
Look, I would bet my left eye that they're going to stay on hold because basically inflation is coming down, thankfully, and the economy is incredibly weak. So, as I said, we're in a per capita recession. So my view is that the RBA is going to stay on hold for several months, probably towards late in the year, and then they're going to cut interest rates.
Great to listen to you, Leith, and let's talk again soon. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem, Ben, anytime.
Leith Van Onselen, the Chief Economist at Macro Business.